Yo, what is up? In today's video, I'm going to be covering 5 movement techniques that every controller and console player must know inside of Apex Legends. For each of the 5 tricks, I will show how to do it as well as when to use it in game. Also, the 5 I picked out are actually useful in real games, so don't worry, there's nothing insanely niche you are never going to use. Starting off with one you've probably heard of before, and that is the Superglide. It allows a player to gain an instant speed boost after climbing, and is quickly becoming one of the most popular movement tricks in the Apex community. It also surprisingly only uses 2 inputs, jump and crouch. The reason it is so tricky is because you only have 1 or 2 frames where you can pull the maneuver off. To learn how to Superglide, load up firing range and find any spot where you can climb. Start by climbing up, and right before the climbing animation ends, press your jump and crouch inputs at the same time. If you're doing it right, your legend should fly forward immediately. As I said earlier, the timing is really annoying to get down consistently, but once you do, it's extremely satisfying. The funny part about this movement technique is that it's one of the only ones that is easier on console. With super gliding, the lower frame rates the better because it gives you more leeway to press both inputs correctly, and the frame rates on consoles are much slower than that of PCs. So this is definitely a must know for all console players. Some people are still dubious of whether super gliding is actually useful in real games, and to those people I completely disagree. Super gliding can be a little harder to pull off than most controller movement techs, but it is way more useful. It can be used even on objects like fences and little edges. It catches your opponent off guard when you go flying off of a building and makes you way harder to track. I myself still have a long ways to go before mastering super gliding, and it will take time, but I believe the end result is worth it. Next up is the static wall bounce. I didn't want to put the normal wall bounce on this list because I believe most people already know how to do it. Plus, the static wall bounce is way more useful in game. If you don't know what a static wall bounce is, it is just like a normal wall bounce except you pull it off with less momentum. So you would use this move when there's an enemy in front of you and maybe you need to reload or simply want to make yourself harder to hit. Taking the time to run at a wall in order to do a full wall bounce will just lead to you dying more often than not in this situation. Instead, you can use the static wall bounce. The only requirement is that there's a wall near to you when you want to pull this move off. Start by facing forward like you are looking at the enemy. Quickly turn towards the wall you want to static bounce off and slide jump into it. As you hit the wall, press your jump input and nothing else. Immediately after that, begin crouching and looking back in the direction of the enemy. If you keep holding your crouch bind, you will go into a slide after you get out of the static wall bounce. It's not really a wall bounce because you more fall to the ground after hitting the wall, but all the less it's really useful when you need to reload or avoid an enemy. If you've ever watched Fayde or any other movement legend and love their clean zipline movement but wish you could do it on controller, you're in luck. This next movement tech on the list is called zip swinging or zipline hopping, and I have some tricks for how controller players can do it, even on low sense. It's what you see streamers doing all the time in the buildings in Capital. The key to doing this trick on controller is holding down your interact button the entire time. This will make it possible on almost every sensitivity as long as it's not insanely low, and a trick you should be using even if you play on high sense. So as you hold your interact button, for me that's X on an Xbox controller, you will attach to the zipline as soon as you get close enough. Immediately when you attach to the zipline, press jump, which will give you the launch effect. From there, turn in the direction you want to reattach to the zipline while still holding jump. From there, turn in the direction you want to reattach to the zipline while still holding interact. You can repeat this process for a chain effect. Keep in mind that devs nerfed this, so for any freestanding zipline, you will only be able to chain it 3 times in a row before it will not let you reattach. Another thing that makes this trick easier is using your left analog stick in conjunction with your right. You should use your left stick to be guiding yourself back into the same direction as you're turning. So if you push your right analog stick left, push your left analog stick to the back and left. This trick, comboed with the holding interact trick, will make almost any zipline tech possible for controller players. The next technique is one that is really underused by controller players. It is the reverse turn and allows you to turn corners way quicker than simply running around them. Here is sprinting around a corner, and here is reverse turning around a corner. As you can see, the reverse turn allows you to maintain more momentum and make a sharper turn. It's a close substitute for tab strafing around a corner for controller players. You start by running straight at the corner you want to turn around and slide jumping. You do have to time the slide jump so you are in the air as you shift around the corner. As you are in the air, use your right stick to point yourself backwards in the direction you want to go, and then your left stick should be pointed backwards and slightly into the corner. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. Put some time in the firing range and you should have this trick down ASAP. Obviously, this is a good one to use when someone is chasing you because it is faster than just sprinting, but another time I use this is for baiting. This trick sets you up facing the corner if you do nothing else. So if I know an enemy is going to be coming around the corner, I can wait and they will walk unsuspectingly right into my drawn weapon. The fifth and final technique on today's list is a technique that allows you to do wall bounces off of small structures. It can also be used to never get dead wall jumps. If you've ever been in game or the firing range and gotten a wall bounce where you just kind of fall to the ground, then you know it's super annoying. You get these dead wall bounces on surfaces that aren't perfectly flat or have a small surface area. To always get a clean wall bounce, all you have to do is press your movement input that takes you the way you want to go in conjunction with your jump input. For example, if you're doing a wall bounce off of these pallets in the firing range, you would start by slide jumping at them and pressing nothing other than your jump input right as you hit the wall. However, you would not get the wall bounce effect and would instead fall to the ground. What you can do to actually perform the wall bounce is to move your left analog stick in the way your wall bounce is going towards. So it should look something like this. Slide jump at the pallet, press your jump input and nothing else when you hit the pallet, and slightly before that, your left analog stick in the direction you want to go. If your wall bounce takes you to the left, move your stick to the left, and if you're going to the right, move it right. This trick is not advanced in terms of how you do it, but more what you can do with it. You should be using this technique every time you do a wall bounce that is not on a perfectly flat surface in every small spot. This opens up way more spots to wall bounce off of, like supply crates and railings. I also feel more confident doing creative wall jumps in games because I know I won't end up falling to the ground. That was 5 movement techniques and tricks every controller player needs to know. I would highly recommend you put a little time in the firing range learning these because they come in handy in game and make you a better player if you know them. If you enjoyed this video or learned something new, please like and subscribe, and also leave a comment if you would add anything to the list that I left out. Thank you for watching.